I guess we're having a tech problem back there, guys? With the trailer? Okay, we're gonna play this trailer here to kind of intro into what we're gonna talk about today, but think about questions because there's gonna be a Battlestar movie. We're kind of debating what you would like to see, what you liked about the original, what you hated, what you like about the new show. Think about all the things you'd like to talk about, okay? And after this trailer, we're gonna get into the questions. So, are we ready? Shall I tell jokes? By the way, I always say lock the doors, please. Oh, here we go.
Prolific shows ever created for television. And I don't know. I've not seen everything that's been played on TV, so I wouldn't know from all over the world. But I do know that at this time, especially after the consciousness raising that was brought about by the 9/11 situation, now it becomes really easy to see that this could become a reality real quick, much quicker than we anticipated and want. Where the annihilation of the species.
I think Battlestar really broke the mold for science fiction shows on TV. They got very gritty. It gives the show a feeling of impending doom, or just really keeps the pressure up all the time. And the camera work and the editing, it's indicative of a population under great stress.
Great science fiction was always used as a prism through which the culture could look at itself and sort of provide a safe haven to talk about the issues of the day without all the accompanying hysteria or emotion that tends to accompany those types of discussions. It's really only been in the last 30 years that science fiction became escapist or became, summer movie, empty bubblegum fare. It was always intended to be a serious genre, a genre that would give you an opportunity to sort of look at each other, to look at ourselves, and to be able to discuss things that are maybe uncomfortable to discuss in a non-fantasy environment. And so yes, this show, like the great science fiction of old, will continue to investigate the issues of the day that might not be traditionally associated with the genre in a contemporary sense.
This is the same story. It's just told differently.
That the show was about something. That it was about a lot of issues that people are too scared to talk about. And it was about the hope for a better world. For the end of racism, for the end of ignorance. That you could look at yourself and see, who really is the bad guy, because there aren't any bad guys. I don't think. I mean, as far as war goes, you know?
I think the popularity of the show is a combination of chemistry, certainly a great script, a wonderful story with so many elements in it. Certainly the science fiction has always proven to be very successful. This had something different. It had religion, mythology, it had all those elements in it. And I think once all the characters came together, and the sets, and the special effects, and the makeup, and the costumes, and the relationships between the people were so wonderful, and those were solid.
When you start to receive these people's experiences and how they deal with it, and you find yourself, your own humanity in every one of us.
The premise of Battlestar Galactica is not conducive to relationships. It's conducive to snatched moments of passion and release. It's not conducive to sustained emotional commitment because people are being tested on so many psychological levels.
Who are the good guys and who are the bad guys? That line fades away. You would think that the humanity is the way that one would always root for humanity. You do until you don't. And you start to realize how, extremely difficult the decisions are that have to be made, and how those decisions just go against what we feel to be things that we should, not do, or that if you do them, you really are playing with your values jarred or in disrepair.
We're all on this profound journey of basically being cast out of our own house, our home, our family, as we grow up as children. We're cast out into the world. We've got to basically go, deal with the ups and downs, the cares, the fears, the insecurities, everything that confronts each and every one of us as we go out there in the world and try to decide who we are, what we're made of, what we're capable of, what we want to do. And we go on this epic acid test of one's soul.
Hello? Oh, it's on now. Okay, good. Who said so say we all? Okay, stand up. Say that again. There you go. Come on up. So say we all. Come on, do the Edward Almost version. Here we go. Everybody, so say we all. One more time. So say we all. One more time. So say we all. Okay. Big hand. I gotta tell you, it's really hard to watch yourself 35 years ago when I didn't have to hold my stomach in. I was on Baywatch once, and no take is longer than 3 minutes because none of the actors could hold their stomach in for longer than 3 minutes. I'm not kidding you. It's really interesting watching, you're getting a chance to see both shows, the things you remember. Obviously, we had fans who loved the original that didn't love the new show. You had fans of the new show that hated the original. You have some who like both shows. The interesting thing is going to be where they go now. What topography, what drama topography do they cover now that they haven't covered before? The question is, are you open to a whole new cast? Would you like to see the new show, the new version reimagined, brought forward? What would you like? So we're going to get as many of you as possible kind of getting into the dialogue about what you like, what you didn't like, what you'd like to see more of. And the reason I wanted to go into this today, and this is really important, we're in a new world, a new age, a new time when studios are having to realize that there's got to be a relationship between us fans, right? And the studios, the networks, and the kind of programming they do. They have to learn to listen to what you want. And I think this is your chance to realize that we all have a voice in where things go, but we have to be vocal. We have to stand up. We have to let people know what you would like to see. So the question is, what would you like to see? And I promise you, there are eyes and ears out there listening to you. There's been no more powerful time when fans could be more of an integral, powerful part of the equation, and they will be listening to what you would like to see that will get woven into the script. And so think about it. If you're online, if you're part of social networks, start dialoguing about it. It's going to be an interesting thing, I think, because with the two shows, where would they go? Tom DeSanto and Bryan Singer who did X-Men, of course. They were going to do a new version of Battlestar before the new reimagined version with Ron Moore came forth. And he was going to go 30 years down the line from the original and see where they would be. Bringing some of the originals back, adding a new generation born in space. A little bit of what I did in my books, but a different story. The question now is, I don't think that's the plan, but the question is, where else could they go and explore new territory? Where they could go and explore new ideas, new concepts, new things. So think about what you would like to share, and then we'll get into that dialogue. And before we start this, obviously, I want to introduce you to a few guests I have here. I'm sure, I don't know how many of you were at the Battlestar auctions. Talk about a hard thing, watching all those things you were on set with and loved and had a connection to, all of a sudden being sold. I found my Tom Zarek jacket walking out the door, and I tried to buy it back from the guy, and he wouldn't sell it. And of course I took him out, you know, like Tom Zarek. The guy that ran that auction, plus he ran auctions for all the other major shows. He's the owner, producer, executive of PropWorks. He's also a good friend of mine for 20 years, and he is producing. And we're going to play this at the end of the panel today. But I'm part of a thing which I think is going to be epic. It's going to be the biggest Trek indie film I think ever made. And they have Kate Vernon's going to be in it. Michael Hogan's going to be in it. I'm in it, and a whole slew of really wonderful, talented, gifted actors. We're going to play a little sizzle reel for it, and on Saturday night, they're actually doing the 20-minute premiere at the Horton Plaza Theaters. If any of you are interested, you know, let us know, and we'll show you where it is. But in the meantime, I want to introduce Mr. Alec Peters. Give him a big hand as he comes on board. Alec is going to help us in terms of hosting this panel and keeping us on track and keeping the discussion interesting. Thank you, Alec. And of course, now we have one of the most delicious writer, producers, funny, quirky, exciting, intelligent, visionary. Her name is Jane Espenson, obviously from Buffy. Battlestar Galactica. And her current show, Husband. I'm sure you remember that. Hi, Jane. Good to see you. You are hot, by the way. Seriously.
Thank you.
Now, Kevin Grazer. If you know Kevin, how many people know Kevin Grazer in here? I'm sure you're going to be going to a number of his panels this weekend. He is the science nerd. All the women at Comic-Con usually find a way to say hello to. He's stuck on the freeway, but he will be here as soon as he can. Oh my God, he's here. Okay, get up. All right. Kevin, come on up here. Kevin Grazer, give him a big hand. Kevin, of course, is the science consultant for Battlestar, Eureka, Fallen Sky, what else? Defiance? How many people are watching Defiance? Good.
How many are loving Defiance this season?
Luciana just called me, and again, you know, how we actors are flaky, what can I say? You know, we try our best, but she couldn't make it. She had an audition. She had to stay in town, but she won't be here. In terms of Jamie Bamber, honestly, I don't know if the Jamie Bamber fan club is here. Are they here anywhere? Well, honestly, I got mixed reports. I got a report that he's working Thursday and Friday. He'll be here over the weekend, so he will be here. And then I heard he will be here. So if he shows up, we'll all give him a big hand and welcome him, but I'm not sure where that's going to be. All right. The show's yours, Alec?
All right.
You're on.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to, you know, Richard and I, we live like 2 minutes from each other, and I also am one of his acting students. Actually, I took my first acting class with him 20 years ago. After the 15th anniversary of Battlestar Galactica convention, he was pimping his acting classes, and I said, why not? And so, we talked about, what did we want to talk about? And let's not just have the same old questions all the time. But I do want to ask, this is the one question I hear asked of Richard more than any other question, and so I'm going to ask it. Can I have a hug? Can I have a hug? You're going to say I want to. Thanks for spoiling my line, Kevin. You're fired. Okay, so, in the vein of looking, Richard really wants us to talk about where do we go with this? And we've talked ad nauseum, I'm sure we've all talked about how great Battlestar is. I consider it simply the greatest science fiction series of all time, bar none. So say we all. Can I have so say we all?
So say we all.
Thank you. And I'm a huge Star Trek fan. There's no bigger Star Trek fan than me, but Battlestar is the best science fiction ever. And we've all talked about why it is. So let me start off this panel, and I'm going to start this off, ladies first, by asking the beautiful and talented Jane.
There's a lady here?
Yeah. What didn't Battlestar do that you would have liked to have visited something, either because it was only 4 seasons, it could have been longer, or that it just wound up on the bottom of the writing room floor?
I felt bad that we didn't get as much diversity in the show, particularly LGBT, until the webisodes. I think establishing that Lieutenant Gator was gay earlier in the run of the show would have been a service to the world. And I always felt like, we spent that year in Baltar's hair. I'd be very curious to go back and see more of that year. Maybe that's something that could be, explored more in a future incarnation.
Great. Okay, Richard. What do you think? What is the area of Battlestar that you would think that there was a lost opportunity?
Boy, you really want to ask me this question?
And don't just limit it to Tom Zarek.
Oh, I know. Every actor, seriously, especially, I think more so on Battlestar than just about anything I've been involved in, but we get personally attached, we get emotionally attached to the characters we play. And what happens to the characters, affects us. And so it did affect me a little bit getting blown out the airlock. I felt I was feeling a lack of love and support, and honestly, in terms of Tom Zarek, I would have loved to have had one final scene with Jamie Bamber. I started my first episode with Jamie Bamber and kind of introduced, Tom Zarek, and I would have loved to have had, like Gaeta did with Baltar, right? He had that last scene before they got blown out the airlock. I would have liked to have had that last moment just to get into a little bit of the underbelly, backstory, and understanding of where Tom Zarek was coming from. Because I think it was a very enigmatic kind of character that people, I think in many cases, misunderstood where his motivations were. I mean, how can you get upset at killing the entire quorum when... Did somebody laugh?
Somebody's upset, clearly.
Did I upset? Oh, I'm sorry.
Too soon.
Okay. Anyway, the point is that I would have loved to have seen that. But I think in terms of the story, I just love I want to get into the struggle, because here you are in the confines of space. You are going where no man or woman has gone before. You are having to deal with insurmountable challenges, life and death challenges, logistics, where you never know if you're going to have enough food, enough water, enough resources to make it to the next destination. How many people have to die? How many choices would you have to make in terms of who would live, who would die? And you would have to make those choices because there wouldn't be enough resources for everybody. And I would have loved to have seen that life and death kind of edge every single week, and really kind of maybe going on the path of saying, where did those people that 13th tribe call it, those that went before us, that maybe made it to Earth, where did they go? And it would be an off-course, on-course type of a journey where sometimes you find remnants from what came before you and left behind. Maybe they, got involved with the indigenous society of that planet and left some kind of remnants of where they were. But it would be like piecing together a map, trying to find the journey to where this mythological place called Earth was. I would have liked to have seen more of that life and death journey and making it from destination to destination. Again, you had so many wonderful characters. It's very challenging to be able to get into the backstory of every character. And that's one of the reasons why I always felt the show needed about 5 more years. What do you say? The 5 more years? Yeah. I would have loved a little more time. I agree with you on the Tom Zarek piece about having a final talk between Tom and Jamie Bamber and Apollo, because for me, that scene between between Baltar and Gaeta, when Gaeta's telling him about, I thought about being an architect when I was, it sends chills up my spine. And it was as great an actor as I think James Cowell says, that was his finest piece of acting in the entire series. And I looked at that as inspiration, you know, for acting is something of the quality of that. So let's pass it then on to Kevin. Why don't you answer the same question? Where's the direction that you think there was a missed opportunity on Battlestar?
Actually, I would love to see, and then well done for finding a question I've never asked, or never answered, I mean. I would love to see a director's or producers or heck, a science advisor's cut of 33. Because when I got 33, you know, I had like a 5-minute interview with Ron, and he hands me the Bible in the first episodes. I get home, and I open 33, I got like literally 3 pages in, and I called the woman I was dating at the time, I said, oh my God. I live in the valley. I had just been hired on the greatest science fiction show ever. And she said, not that you're biased or anything, but really, I mean, it took 3 pages to figure that out. And what 33 did in the original, that 33 didn't do in the final version, was that when they destroy Olympic Carrier, I would argue that when they establish there's nukes on board, there's no moral dilemma there whatsoever. From that point on, we should have left the Olympic Carrier behind and forgotten about it because it was a danger to the entire human race. But in the first version that Ron wrote, the Olympic Carrier is barreling towards the fleet. It's not answering its hails. We don't ever establish that there were nukes on board, and when Apollo and Starbuck do flyby, they see people in the window. So you know there's 1,365 people aboard Olympic Carrier, and they decide to kill it anyway. That was a moral dilemma that I just think just sat wrong with, you know, the higher ups saying, wow, do we like really want to do this? I mean, obviously we went to places like that further on when, you know, people got kind of desensitized to all the darkness, but that was just, we just jumped right into the dark from the word go, and it was amazing, the script, and I'm just really kind of sorry we didn't do that version, so I'd love to see that version when there actually is a moral dilemma and there is something to chew on over 4 seasons.
Or that maybe they detected nukes, but they still saw the people on them, and then it's like, well, wait a second, that doesn't make any sense.
That was actually an intermediate version. It really was.
Was it? Okay. Yeah, great. Before we get into directing Battlestar forward, the one question I have to ask, and I have a little personal interest because of my relationship with Richard. Richard's my acting coach. Obviously, we all feel, and I know Richard tells so many wonderful stories about the working as an actor on Battlestar. I'm not interested in that right now. What I want to know is, and I'm going to start with Jane, that you had this unbelievable ensemble that you were writing for. How much do you, as a writer, take into account, God, you know, I want to see Richard take Tom Zarek here, as opposed to just, hey, here's the character, and we're writing the character, and here's the story goes. So, tell us a little. You have to start with theme. You have to start with what the episode is about, and you want to write the scenes that point at that, and that dictates it. Within that, though, there are definitely choices where you go, okay, which actors are going to have this conversation, and you lean towards your good actors. And the wonderful thing about Battlestar was this incredible depth of field that you could pluck any of the actors and know you were going to get a good performance. And I mean, that's just amazing, because I've been on a lot of shows where you're like, gee, we'd love to tell a story with this theme, but that would require a lot of scenes from this actor who we don't feel is up to it yet. So Battlestar, you didn't have to have those dilemmas. You could let the theme lead you anywhere, use any of the actors that served it. And so there wasn't a lot of like, we want to see a scene between these two characters. It was much more like, we want to tell this story. Hey, look, within that story, these characters come together that have never had a scene together before, or whatever, one of this depth. It was just, you could do anything. You could look in any direction. It's like when you stand at Disneyland, unlike any other theme park, there's places you can stand in Disneyland and look around and the illusion isn't broken. You don't see part of a parking garage. Battlestar was that. Anywhere you stood and looked around, there was more Battlestar, and it was all good. And as just a follow-up question to that, I know Richard talks a lot about the improvisation that was allowed on set, and the chemistry between the actors, and you know, scenes take you somewhere as an actor, or you get into a certain place and you wind up not where you're expecting to be. As a writer, how does that make you feel? Were there times where you said, wow, I didn't think about that. Or maybe there were times when you said, just stick to the pages. Right? Tell us just a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, I came from a background that was a just stick to the words kind of background. On a Joss Whedon show, there wasn't improv on the set. On most of the shows I've been on, and particularly in sitcoms, you have to say the line exactly because it is setting up the punchline, so the words have to be exactly right to set up the punchline. This is the only show I've ever been on where there was this much freedom coming from the set of actors rewriting the lines, finding new moments. Baltar would throw out entire speeches and make up his own speech, and it would be better, which was really frustrating. Because you're like, what the heck? He's throwing out my speech. That speech is gorgeous. I spent up all night writing that speech. This is going to be trash. And then you listen to it and you go, oh, fuck. That was really good. That had layers I didn't have. So on this show, it worked. And I couldn't believe it because of the tradition I'd come from. I couldn't believe that the show was getting better, not worse, when you took your hands off the controls. But it really did consistently.
And real quickly, Richard, what kind of interaction do the actors have with the writing staff? And was it compared to other shows you've been on?
You know, it's really interesting because so often, you know, it is hard to change lines because a lot of times the producer, the writer of that episode is not around. And, you know, so they tend to want you to stay, you know, with what they wrote. But I'll tell you, a lot of times, especially today, they let you improv a little before, a little after. That way you don't change what has been written.
Yeah, you get one take or two takes with the scripted line, and then you're allowed to, like...
But I heard James really was probably the most prolific in his, improving with Scene Jet.
Yeah.
But the nice part was on this show, and I have to be honest, I've been in this business, almost 50 years, believe it or not. And I've been on many, many shows. And every show has a different personality, every show has a different kind of set of egos that are dealing, but the relationship between the writer, director, producers, and actors was the most collaborative I've ever seen in my life. You had 5, 6 handheld cameras, and you would have the writer-producer of each episode on set working with you in a way. It was so interesting because sometimes the writer would come up to me and give me notes. Sometimes it was the writer talking to me about maybe my take on a particular scene. I was struggling, believe it or not, with the scene where I had to kill the quorum. That was probably one of the hardest things I ever did. Because you only take out people that are against you in a coup, right? Because you're fighting for what you believe is going to be the greater good. And so they had the quorum actually agreeing with me. And then I walk out the door and I say, you know, take him out. And I said, he would never do that. You know, and because of the relationship between Ron, the writers, producers, directors, they came over, we talked, they changed it instantly, and then they made them obviously go against me, and then I had to walk out and do that choice. But it was still hard for me because I had to find, for me as an actor, a justification. I needed something to get beyond the having to kill this many people that were my best friends on that ship. And so I literally got pissed. It was like, you know, remember that little scene in the jailhouse when I talked to the gate and I said, you know, if we take this step towards doing a coup, that's an extreme mechanism, when all else has failed, you take this extreme because you believe in what you're doing, but people are going to die. Anybody against you, you have to take out, no matter how much you love them, in a coup. And so when I played that scene, it was like I was pissed off at Gator. I was really angry. I wanted to throw him up against a wall. You mother, you know, fracker. How's that? And then I was playing it, and of course I couldn't. I was so pissed off, and you know, I was really getting into it. And of course I thought, oh man, I hit a home run on that one. I was really into it. And then of course the writer comes out, Michael Angeles, and saunters over to me and says, Richard, can I talk to you for a few minutes? You know, and we walked over to the side, and this again is a trust issue because you really have to learn to build up trust. Because he asked me to go totally against my own instincts. And I think what Richard Hatch needed to deal with killing that many people. So he said, just say the words. Now that sounds like don't do anything, right? But that's not what it means. It means stop trying to do so much with it. Just talk, just look at him and say the words. And I did it. And they printed it, and I figured they already had the other take, and obviously in the editing room they're gonna go, the more emotional, angry, pissed off is gonna be more dramatic. They used the other take. And I gotta tell you, that was the best take. They were absolutely right. But again, actors do have, a lot of actors don't want to be directed. But on that set, because it was so collaborative, you were always searching for the best, most creative, most powerful way to play a scene. And everybody was working towards that goal. So nobody was really taking an ego diva position of it's got to be my way. That's what I love about this show. And I have not been on another show like that.
No, I never have been on a show that collaborative, particularly because it was shot in Vancouver, so each of us had to fly up individually to supervise our episodes, and you're stepping into an environment where you haven't been since the last time you did an episode. The directors rotate as on all TV shows, so that person wasn't there the previous week, and so the actors are the only ones who've been there the whole time, and the crew, and so it's these pieces coming together, trying to figure out how to make this show this week, and it didn't feel like it should work, and it just did consistently. It was so collaborative, and so much great came out of it. And I don't think, the show Husbands that I write now, I co-write with the lead actor, and I don't think I'd be doing that if I hadn't had that great collaborative experience at Battlestar.
And if I could tell you how deep that goes, when I had my first meeting with Ron, he handed me the series Bible on 33 and Water. I said, well, it's going to take me a while to find my place. And what I meant by that is anybody who's ever been a science advisor, if you step outside of a very narrow range of advice or of input, you get told, we'll handle the creative stuff, you just stick to the science, thank you very much. That never happened on Battlestar, but what Ron said is, no. Understand that anything you want to give us, we'll take. And it's true. About half of what I submitted was military-related stuff. I submitted a few humorous lines that actually made it, not that there was all that many in the show, but actually made it into the final cut. And the first day of filming I ever saw was Colonial Day. It was in the Chan Center at the University of British Columbia, and we were doing the quorum scenes. And Richard was doing a line, and he said, and he was trying to convince him to name the vice president. He said, and God forbid, if something should happen to the president. And he was doing it as written. But I went to the script supervisor and said, shouldn't he be saying God's forbid? She was, and she runs up and she said, and then that's what ended up in the final version. But I was in Nolan as far as she knew. I mean, I was just there, that was my first day. She never met me, and they took it. I mean, no bristling, no nothing. It was just, that was the level of cooperation we had on the show.
Was that the first time that we'd heard gods in a familiar expression, and later on we had, oh my gods?
It wasn't, but it had already been established. That's why we need to say it,
Absolutely. Great catch.
So now we're going to move on to the future of Battlestar Galactica. Obviously, that's rather relevant, as Universal has often and recently said that there will be a Battlestar Galactica movie. The latest I heard was we're going to combine the past, we're going to honor the past two shows or some such. So that being the case, being that it might come back, not necessarily what you want to see, but where do you like to see the future of Battlestar Galactica? Because if it is in fact the greatest science fiction, TV show of all time, I think at some point something's going to happen with it. We know the way the studios are. They don't leave their successes on the shelf. They exploit them as much as possible. So, Jane, once again, tell us, expanding on where the missed opportunities are, what would you not like to see in the future? Because, as we say, it's all happened before and it's all going to happen again.
Well, I'm going to give an answer that I don't think is exactly to the question you're asking, but I think it's a good answer anyway, which is who should do it, who should be involved, who should be the visionary behind it, because I think, both incarnations of Battlestar had a strong visionary with something to say. When I'm asked about Buffy movies, I always say I wouldn't be involved in it if it wasn't Joss running it, because I think that show was so singular to his vision. This is a different situation because there have been two different people who owned and created their version of Battlestar. So I suppose it's possible to hand it over to another visionary. At that point, I think the important thing is to let that visionary run with their vision of it. I think there's a great danger of blanding things out by making them a democracy, and if you sort of have everybody weigh in, every fan, everyone who's been involved weigh in with what they want it to be, you're going to end up with, okay, check mark, yeah, we got that, we got that, instead of the inspired vision of a person who's like, I've got a story to tell, I'm going to make it my own, the audience is going to be happy, because they won't know where it's going, because they didn't get a chance to vote. And I hate to take power out of the hands of the people, but I think there's something very powerful about a storyteller who is just given free rein to tell their story. So
which is exactly Ron Moore's point when he appeared at the 25th anniversary Battlestar Galactica convention, which I was also at, and which Richard put on, and Kevin was there, and we're sitting in this very, very small room. It's a fraction of maybe 12 rows of this room. And Ron gets up there, and this is 2003, and so it's before it's on, and Ron said, look, this isn't necessarily the Battlestar Galactica you want to see. It's a story that I want to tell, and give me a chance to tell. So he was saying exactly what you're saying. All you writers, you all stick together. But it's true.
Yeah, we want a chance to delight and surprise people, and I think there's a certain amount when, where you get that, where it's taken out of your hands, you end up with a product that people think they want that's actually not as much as they will enjoy the thing that they had no idea they wanted.
Right. Great. So I'm going to skip over Richard.
I want to add one thing to that. Has anyone ever seen the CSI episode Space Oddity, the murder at a sci-fi convention?
Yes.
Yeah, show of hands. Okay, to give you an idea what Galacticon was like for Ron, the scene where the producers is putting forth his new version of Astral Quest Redux, and that the angry crowd reaction, that is entirely patterned after Galacticon, because the writers, the director, the guest star, that's a bunch of Battlestar people doing an episode of CSI. So that was absolutely patterned after his experience at Galacticon.
By the way, you have to understand, at that convention, I was trying to bring together everybody that had an idea where they wanted to take Battlestar, right? So we had Tom DeSanto, Brian Singer, Glenn Larson, Ron Moore, everybody. And people were pissed off that, whether it was Glenn Larson or Ron Moore or whoever, they all wanted their version of Battlestar. But there had been all this bad feedback online, this big war going on, right? About the new show. They thought it was going to be a 90210 version of Battlestar. They're going to rip up the shreds, which, by the way, do we have any reason to trust networks and studios normally when they take a classic that we love and bring it back? Usually they blow it, they really do. But I thought with Battlestar, it shocked me because it was, I thought, as Kevin said, one of the best, if not the best, sci-fi show of all time for me on television, and I can't wait to see it in the movies. But I gotta tell you, when I walked in there, and I had not met Ron Moore, and then I saw in the big panel room, prior to him walking in, bags of popcorn. Yes, big bags of popcorn being brought in. I go, what is going on here? And somebody said that Ron got a little pissed off after a while about all the fan, anger at what he was doing. And he basically said, look, if you don't like it, throw popcorn. And that's exactly what they were planning to do. So after
they weren't bags, they were huge boxes.
Huge. So I got to tell you, it was a little terrifying. And then he did his thing, and you have no idea how cold that room was. There was not a sound in that room. And I have to be honest with you, I didn't know what it was going to be. But the one thing I noticed, whether it's my way or the highway or somebody else's way, I'm looking for the best way, the most exciting way. And when I saw what he did, it was so different. It was hard to make that connection when you had your own idea of where you wanted to go, right? But I recognized that this was not just somebody hired to throw it together and throw it out there. Somebody had a vision. Somebody had an idea of where they wanted to go. And that excited me. And I got up and actually said a few words to the crowd, and I kind of said some nice words because I really felt very positive about Ron Moore. And then Moses got up, and parted the river, and I've kind of heard that little story with Ron kind of at a few conventions, but I felt so bad because the trouble is with all of us fans, we love what we love, and we get upset when people change what we love. But the truth is, you know, things do have to grow, evolve, move forward. You can't just keep everything the same. Hopefully, they don't lose the heart and soul of what we love about a particular show, right? But you know certain things are going to change. And every writer, producer I know wants to come in and not just do a duplication. They don't want to do a replication. They want to come and step into it and bring some creative vision, new energy, and take it to the next level. And I honestly believe, like I've told so many people, I thought Ron Moore and that writing staff, acting staff was one of the most extraordinary experiences I've ever had. I was so proud to be part of that show.
And to give you an idea, what the reception Ron got, after he gave his presentation and Richard spoke, we had a little bit of Q&A. And when I first went in to interview for my job, we had a little, hi, I'm Ron Moore, I'm Kevin Grazier. He stopped and said, you look familiar. I said, yeah, Galactica, and I asked you the only 2 polite questions you got all night. That's how bad it was.
I think, and I think that's a very important point, Richard, because we don't want the next Battlestar Galactica to be the last Battlestar Galactica. Star Trek has already proven how disastrous that model is, because after Deep Space Nine, which was the best Star Trek ever, because Ron Moore was on it, partly, the next 2 were just carbon copies. They were just reiterating the same old thing over and over, and ultimately, as much as you might love it, it gets boring. So that's it. So that being said, Richard, I'm going to ask you a question. You saw Ron's version you're back at Galacticon 25. You hear Ron's version. You hear Tom DeSanto's version. I sat in on Tom DeSanto's talk and heard his version, which was involved. You know, you gave me your feedback on that. Involved 30 years later, and the crew has moved on, and some have died, and there's a new generation. It was really interesting. It was not dissimilar to the Second Coming trailer you did, which was amazing, and your books. And then you have your books and the Second Coming trailer and all that. It's easy to say I would have loved to have seen it go that way. Certainly I would have loved to have seen yours. But now that you've seen it in retrospect, give me your feedback.
Yeah, and then I want to, if we can, get all of you who wants to come up, get in the line here if you can. If you've got something to say about what you would like to see with where Battlestars can go in the future, in the next couple of years, what would you like to see in a new movie? Would you like to see, you know, a combination of the old and new show? Where would you like it to go? The thought was, if they go 30 years forward, but the trouble with the new show is they went to Earth. You know, and my feeling about it was, I thought there were so many more stories to tell in that Galactica, but because the network, I think, was already kind of iffy about supporting Battlestar, I think people don't realize the way they look at the Nielsen, especially then, and the way we watch television now. No, how many want to watch 20 minutes of commercial per episode? Anybody? So we TiVo it. Sometimes we wait till the whole season's over and we buy the DVD and we watch it back to back. We don't watch it the normal way. And if you don't watch it within 24 hours, it wouldn't even register. So the question was, everywhere I went, it looked like more people were watching the show, not less, and yet the ratings seemed to register less people. So they were going to basically take it off. So they rushed, for me, an ending that should have taken, I think, another year or 2.
Yeah.
And so, but if they didn't get to Earth, see, for me, there were so many more stories to tell. So what do you do? Where do you go? How do you do this? Because the original show only went so far, so it never got to Earth. 1980, I throw out. I had my frontal lobe lobotomy. I thought was the worst. It was made for all the wrong reasons. The new show, I love where they went with it, where they developed the characters, the story arcs, the character arcs. But the question is, with the new show, the only way I would think they could bridge new territory would be to go forward from where they were. And that means whether it's 20 years forward, 30 years forward, where they could, if they're going to use the new show, they could use some of the characters from this new show and add some new characters as they move forward. That way you're going to go into areas of space you've never been in, you're going to bring in some new characters, and yet you're going to have the familiar characters that you relate to, that you care about, and that you love. So the question would be, how do you bridge that? Some of you want to throw away the new show and go back to the original. Glenn Larson
is the producer on it. The question is, they want to reimagine again the original with the original mythology, but God knows where they're going to go with that. So the question is, what would you like to see? So, somebody in line there? Yeah, come on up.
Is that mic on?
It's not on.
From the diaphragm.
Get that into the...
It's not.
It's not working. Go ahead, just to speak loud, I'll repeat the question.
You were starting to say, it's all happened before. I think I know where you're going.
Well, we've already had 2 iterations of this cycle, right?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So the plot kind of goes originally, all of this has happened before, right? Well, in the context of string theory, could we possibly have the same cast, but maybe, well, not the same cast, same characters, but maybe playing different lives? So, for example, maybe, I don't know, Chief could be in love with the president. So that's kind of my idea. Yeah.
So it's sort of not quite a JJ, but something in the area. Like we're on a different timeline.
Yeah, sort of string theory, infinite number of possibilities for the same event.
So that's what string theory is, the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics.
Is that the only liaison that you would like to see? What other characters would you like to have seen got together?
Well, I think Richard Hatch could have been, I don't know, maybe the captain of the ship. I don't know.
No, but who would Tom Zarek get to frack?
It's fine. I actually was going to mention something that earlier because the new people are saddled with, do we really want to see the destruction of the colonies again? I mean, they have to somehow establish that happened, and they can't they can't rely on what's been done in the past. So how are they going to do that and not that would take up the bulk of an episode if they chose to show that. And so they have to establish it quickly. So a parallel universe thing would be, I think, really kind of cool. I'm not sure they would go for that, but again, I'd pay to see that.
Thanks for the question. Thank you. Next one, we're on a tight time frame.
Hi. I've introduced about a dozen people to the new show, and I've done it by way of the board game. And if nobody here is amazing. Everybody's working together. There's some hidden silence, but the thing takes 3 or 4 hours. And so my biggest concern when I heard we're thinking about a movie was for this board game to be a good representation of the show, to have all that speculation and tension for the epic journey. It takes, much longer than the span of the movie. So I was wondering if you guys had any thoughts about how the epic nature of the show and the speculation that's so much fun between episodes could be fit into a movie or if it has a place.
TV writer.
You have so little time to tell the story. There's an interesting fact that if you look at most great movies that are adapted from fiction, they tend to be adapted from short stories. So you'd have to find, I think, sort of a short story length episode, a story to tell in a movie format. Then you sell that as a TV show, and then you can tell the whole long thing.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I loved the old show as a child and the new one as an adult. And I'm not going to answer the global where should Galactica go. You guys are way smarter than me on that. However,
and other things, just they'll tell you.
One of the things that really bugged me about the new version, very whimsical, no Daggett. My favorite character from the original show. Why wasn't Daggett in there? He was the only action figure cool enough to cross over and play with my Star Wars action figure.
It's a love-hate relationship people have with the Daggett, right? You know that?
I didn't have Apollo. I didn't say that. But see how I got out of it. But
so C-3PO and the Daggett and.
It was Daggett. Like so, he could be the reliable little save the day Daggett, or he could be like the reprogrammed by Cylon's evil Daggett. Like, come on. So why wasn't Daggett in the reboot, and is he going to be in the reboot?
That sounds like a question for Jane.
We did talk about should that just be their word for dog, but we'd already used the word dog. But I always thought that was a good solution. Like, yeah, here's the Daggett. It's a Dalmatian,
Okay, tell you what, we can't answer any more questions. However, don't go anywhere. All of you people who are in line for questions, just meet outside after, and Richard will personally answer all your questions.
Wow. say really quick. One of the reasons why we want to play this little sizzle reel at the end here. First of all, Michael Hogan's going to be in this movie. Kate Vernon as well. So a number of Battlestar Galactica actors are going to be in it, but it's all professionals. It's one of the best written, best produced. The director for me is a young Ridley Scott. Alec Peters has written and produced and put together one of the truly most professional crews, cast, up and down. It is one of the best productions I've seen and been a part of. And again, they're going to play the 20-minute full version of the intro to the War of Axanar. But the reason I'm even talking about this is that fan films are starting to become something. Now, one of the things I would love to see is somebody to take the lead in putting together a really, really well done professional Battlestar Galactica film as well.
As he looks at me.
Yeah. So anybody out there, producers, writers, any of you who are thinking about that, start thinking about that, because when you see what you can do, the Kickstarter campaign, which allows all of us to participate in helping to support the kinds of things we want to see. I don't know about you, but do you realize that all the shows that we love, not all maybe, but all the lovely, wonderful space shows, Firefly, Babylon 5, Farscape, Star Trek, every one of those shows is off the air. It doesn't fit the network model. So fans are beginning to step in and create programming. What are you going to say?
Defiance.
Oh,
That's still on the air.
well, okay.
I wanted to actually throw in that there's a panel about Kickstarter that I'm on later today at 5 o'clock, room 25 ABC. So if you've got projects you want to kickstart, come learn more about it.
So why don't you just intro the...
So real quickly, this is called Prelude to Axanar. It is a 20-minute short film that is the prequel of sorts to the feature we will start shooting this fall called Axanar. It is a Star Trek story. It takes place 20 years before Kirk, Scott, Spock, and McCoy. It's about Garth Vizar, who was a character we saw in one episode of Star Trek, who was Captain Kirk's hero. And this is the famous battle he fought, and it's about the war with the Klingons. We kickstarted this to the tune of, we needed about 20 grand. We asked for 10. We got $100,000 thanks to donors. So I hope you will all, thank you. And a lot of that was because Richard was part of it. Richard plays a Klingon. And he plays the Klingon, and he's awesome. He is unbelievable. It was a pleasure to work with him, and so we're going to start this. We launch our Kickstarter this week, so look up Axanar, A-X-A-N-A-R, and please help us out to make the full-length feature, because it's going to cost about $500,000. But we've already got major plans for it, so now we're going to roll it, and I will be available outside next to Richard to answer questions after this. Thank you.
Was incredible. There were 40,000 people in Archer Arena. The old man himself was there, and they all wanted one thing: hope.
The first goal was to create a class of ship that could spring Starfleet back into action, back into battle. We had to leapfrog Klingon technology. We had over a dozen member worlds working on it. It was the first pure warship that Starfleet had ever built.
Well, that was Ramirez's first roll of the dice, and they landed exactly the way we wanted them to, the way we needed them to. At that point, about the only thing we were doing that impressed the Klingons was dying well.
It wasn't until the formation of the Federation that the High Council began to take Earth seriously. Before then, the incidents with Captain Archer were dismissed as a nuisance. And even after the Federation was formed, many on the High Council thought it was a mere political alliance. Starfleet was never seen as a match for the Imperial Navy. Certainly not one that would impede the growth of the Empire.
The bad blood between the humans and the Klingons meant that the job of preventing war and leading the peace delegations fell to Vulcan. Regrettably, we failed.
Goddamn Inverness 5. Day after day, it was the same thing. I get called in to support some kind of counterattack. By the time I got into orbit, my orders had been changed. Attack called off. Battle was already over. We pull out of warp into a junkyard.
Karn. Vulcan intelligence is, if I may say, unparalleled, but even for us, he was a mystery.
After the Battle of Cygnus 3, our ship captains finally started giving the Federation its due as a worthy adversary. But in the 2 years we wasted in our arrogant belief we were superior to the Federation, we had lost the advantage. With the launch of their newer ships and the experience their commanders had gained, our progress was slowed. Now the D7 would be needed to break the back of Starfleet. The D7 was the ultimate expression of the Klingon warship, technologically superior to anything in the quadrant. We had 3 shipyards across the Klingon Empire building her. We would launch her and devastate the Federation fleet.
Axanar was the bloodiest conflict in the Federation's short history. We didn't sign up to be warriors. That's not what Starfleet's about. We proved that we could do what we needed to do to defend the Federation. I'm proud of everyone who I served with, especially those that didn't make it back.
For myself, I have but one fear: destroying the dream